begin creating your granny square, you need 2 items. The first being your yarn, and I am using the Woolies Thick and Quick. It's a great beginner yarn. It's a little bit more pricey as opposed to like a Red Heart, but it's something that I really have enjoyed using throughout the years. And I am using the colorway Dreamcatcher. In addition, you'll need an appropriately sized crochet hook. And to find what size works for your yarn, it'll actually tell you on the label. So this yarn calls for an N13 or a 9mm crochet hook. However, I like to size up a bit, so I am actually using a 12mm crochet hook. That is just due to my tension and how I like my crochet pieces to look. If I were a beginner, I would start with the 9mm and then work up or down from there. So I'm going to take the label off my yarn and set it to the side, or you can just discard it. Oh, it's actually stuck. We are then going to find the working end of our yarn. And there's usually 2 ways that you can start yarn. You can start it from the middle or start it from the outside, which I'll opt to do here. So the first thing you need to do in creating a granny square is placing a slip knot on your hook. There are multiple different ways to create a slip knot. However, I have found it most easiest and reliable to do the figure 4 method. So I'm going to place my crochet hook down. I am then going to hold the working end in the end of the working yarn in my right hand, create a figure 4 by twisting the yarn on top of the tail, and then twisting that loop on top of the tail and pulling through. So I'll do that one more time slowly. I'm going to take the end of the working yarn in my right hand, flip the yarn up and over the tail to create a figure 4, and then place that on the tail and pull through. So now we're going to go ahead and insert our hook into that loop and pull on the tail and the working yarn to tighten it around our hook. You don't want it to be extremely tight, but you want it to be snug enough that it's not slipping and falling off. So once we've done that, we need to create the ring we're going to be working into. So I'm going to chain 3. And now I have 3 chains from my hook. The loop on the hook is not a chain. So we have 1, 2, 3. I am then going to insert my hook into the first chain. As you can see here, the first one from the slip knot. I'm then going to yarn over and pull the hook through both loops on my crochet hook, so I have a circle. Now there are different methods to do this. I know people enjoy the magic circle method, but this is what I've found easiest for beginners. So now that we've created this base, we're going to go ahead and work the first round. So a granny square is created of double crochet bunches. And the beginning row, we're going to have 4 double crochet bunches of 3. So 12 stitches total with corners, and I'll show you that in a second. But the first double crochet is actually going to be a chain 3. So just like we did for the first row, let's chain 3. And this acts as our first double crochet. We're then going to yarn over, insert our hook inside of the circle, yarn over, pull through, and pull your hook back out, and then finish the double crochet by yarning over, pulling through 2, yarning over, pulling through 2. So with that, we created the first double crochet, but it actually acts as our second in the round. So to finish this grouping, I'm going to work 1 more double crochet. Okay, so now we need to work a corner. And corners on the first row are just 2 chains. So I'm going to chain 1 and then chain 2. I'm then going to work my next grouping of 3 double crochets. Okay, I've just worked 3 more double crochets, so now we are at the next corner and need to work 2 more chains. So I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to work 3 more double crochets into the center. I've mentioned this, but all of these stitches, aside from the chain stitches, are worked into the center ring we created. Okay, on to the next corner, going to chain 2. I'm then going to work my last 3 double crochets of the first round. Okay, to finish the first round, we need to work the last corner and then join it to the first chain 3. So I'm going to chain 2 and then insert my hook into the 3rd chain of the chain 3. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and then insert my hook into that chain and then work a slip stitch. So that is the first round. Now, the next round I teach you is going to be the fundamentals of all of the rounds to come and how you will be able to customize your granny square by making it as big or small as you would like. So to begin the second round, we are going to chain 3, and all rows begin with a chain 3. We are then going to work 2 more double crochets into this corner. So the next thing you can do here, and I'm going to show you one way and not the other, is if you want, you can work 1 chain before working into the next corner. However, I like my granny squares to look a little more tighter, and whenever you work a chain, it creates larger spaces in between the groupings. So I'm going to go ahead and forego the chain and just work 3 double crochets into the next corner. Okay, so as you can see, we need to finish off this corner in order to start working back this way. So just like the first round, we are going to chain 2, but what's different is we've added 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and now we're going to add 3 more double crochets, as opposed to in the first round where you just chain 2 double crochets to create the corner. So I'll repeat that one more time to show you how you work a corner. So just like we did on this one, we're going to yarn over and insert 3 double crochets into this corner. We are then going to chain 2, and work 3 more double crochets into this corner. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing on this corner, but then finishing the last corner is just a little bit different. We have completed 3 corners, so now we're going to complete the last one. We work it the same way we begin the others by inserting 3 double crochets into the corner. Okay, so now here's where it gets a little bit different. Since we already worked the double crochets at the beginning of the round, all we have to do now is chain 2 and then insert our hook into the 3rd chain and place a slip stitch. So now we have completed 2 rounds. After the 3rd round, you'll really begin to get the hang of how a crochet square gets wider and longer on each side. So let's go ahead and begin. We're going to start it the same way as the other rounds. We're going to chain 3 and then insert 2 double crochets into that same corner. Now here's how this row differs from the last one. Instead of working directly into the next corner, we have another gap that we need to work into. And all you need to do here, if you guessed it correctly, is just work 3 double crochets to create another grouping. Now that we've created this grouping, we are able to work into the corner. And so you know the drill, we're going to put 3 double crochets, we're going to chain 2 and work 3 more double crochets. Now we're at the same spot we were last time, but before we put this grouping, I want to show you something. So if we flip back to the last side, you'll see how in the second round, the space between the 2 corners created 1 hole for an extra grouping. By creating the groupings within this current round, we have a corner, 1 side grouping, and then the other corner. The spaces in between these 2 have created 2 holes to put groupings into. So you'll see the pattern is that on each side, it'll grow by 1, or it'll grow each time. I'm not sure if it's exactly by 1, but once you do these 2 in the next round, it'll create even more holes to put groupings into. So that's kind of the fundamentals of how granny squares grow whenever you use this motif, because there are other motifs with no gaps and you grow them a different way, but that's for a different video. So I've placed my grouping of 3 and now we're at the next corner. So I'm just going to work 3 double crochet, chain 2, and work 3 more double crochet. So we're halfway done with this round and we've learned how to add a grouping to the side using the previous hole from the last round. And then we've also enforced how we're able to create corners. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this round and then show you again how we end each round. So as you saw, I finished the granny square up until the last chain 2. So now I'm going to work a chain 2 and then place a slip stitch into the 3rd chain of the chain 3 that begins the round. Okay. So at this point, my granny square is good to go. I've gotten it to the size that I wanted and I am going to now finish it completely. If you're making a granny square, you could make it as big as you possibly want. You could make an entire blanket just from one granny square. That's what my favorite thing about granny squares are. They're highly adaptable and you can use them for a multitude of different projects. But for right now, we're gonna go ahead and complete this granny square. I'm gonna grab my scissors and cut about a 6-inch tail. I'm then going to chain 1, pull that tight, and then pull the tail through the loop one more time to create a double knot. And then you pull tight and voila, it's now secured. So there's a couple ways you can tuck the tails in because that's an important part of crocheting, unfortunately. So I'm going to grab a darning needle. You can use your crochet hook to pull it through, but I find it easier to just get a $1 darning hook or darning needle. I'm going to put the tail through my needle, and then I like to push the yarn to the back of the work. So I'm going to push it through the 3rd chain of the chain 3 and pull it secure. This way the knot flattens a bit. You can even pull it tighter so that the knot goes to the back. I'm gonna flip my granny square over and just kind of almost haphazardly weave in this end. And I usually like to get it under a grouping of 3, pulling it tight, but not too tight so that you shrink this, because if you do, did you see how that shrunk down a bit? So let's pull that back up. And then once I've found that it's secure, I'm gonna go ahead and snip close, but not too close, and then do the same for the beginning tail. So a tip that I have for anyone doing a project containing a ton of granny squares, tuck in your ends as you go. You will thank me later. So there you have it, a completed granny square. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.